So we are going to continue with part 4 tonight. And looking ahead, we're looking towards that day when we have heaven, and that's going to be at least 1,007 years from now. We know that there's going to be a 7-year period of tribulation. At some point that will begin, and then there'll be a 1,000-year reign of Christ here on the earth, and then we will begin eternity. And that's what we've been looking at in Revelation 21 and 22. Before we get there, though, I want to share something that you might find interesting. It is totally upside down from what I had thought. And I guess this fits in because I've been telling you in the past months that what you think you know, you might be all wrong about. You need to verify it. You need to check it out. And so what I'm going to tell you about the poverty level of the people of the world is going to be completely upside down to what you thought, what you think right now. So here is a chart. I'm going to show you several different perspectives on this. This comes from Our World in Data. And this goes from 1820 to 2011. And the red are the people who are living below the poverty level. And the poverty level is $1.25 a day. Okay, so, and it wouldn't make any difference what figure you started with. The scaling will be the same. But that's where I believe the UN considers below the extreme poverty level is $1.25 a day. Of course, $1.25 in Mexico buys different than it does in the United States or different than it does in Indonesia, etc. So there's that. But that's the standard, $1.25 a day or less. So the number of people has been changing drastically. So we go all the way over to 2011. The blue are the people not living in abject poverty. The red are the people who are living in abject poverty. So you see how that has drastically changed. Actually, in my lifetime, I was born in 1953, that has really changed. I've heard Jordan Peterson talking about this, and I thought, this can't be true. The world, we've got places in the world that are just, they're so poor. But I've been hearing him talk about that, and so I checked this out, and indeed, he's absolutely right. The UN has checked this out, and they have researched it, and they've got these figures. And the number of people that are living in abject poverty has gone down drastically in the world in my lifetime. Here's another perspective on it. And this shows it by South Asia, East Asia, and Pacific. They're in the middle. The sub-Saharan Africa hasn't changed much over all these years. And this goes from 1990 to projected on out to 2030. So the number of people that are living in poverty has changed drastically. And Jordan Peterson has been saying, and this is what piqued my attention, was he said this, and he's researched it, and he said the reason for it is our form of making money in this country, our form of our monetary system. He said communism has not helped it. Communism has not been helpful at all. But democracy literally being sent around the world, we have raised the world poverty level. We have pushed it down, raised people above the poverty level to a huge extent. So here's another chart that visualizes it for you. The red are the number of people living in abject poverty. And this one shows it as if there was 100 people in the world. If there were 100 people in the world, back in 1820, 6 were not living in extreme poverty, 94 were. Back in 1820, if you visualize the world as 100 people, 94 of them were in extreme poverty. In 2015, that was down to 10 people living in abject poverty. This just visualizes it a different way, trying to get a grasp on. All of them show the same thing. All of them show that while communism has not helped, our form of making money, private enterprise and all that, has helped the entire world. So we have exported democracy, and even China. China is doing business more West-like than they were communist-like 50 years ago. Even they recognized that what they were doing would not work financially, economically. So is there anybody who doesn't find this a surprise? I was just shocked by it. I would argue that in this one it's based on $1.90 a day poverty level. That's not very much money. But they're talking about abject poverty, right? You know, the poor people in this country are not poor, is one of the takeaways from it. You know, one thing Biden said a couple of weeks ago, and he was right. I don't like it that he was right, but he was right. Every number of years, the world goes through a financial transition. And we are in that process now in the war in Ukraine, with Russia being shut out of the West financially. They're joining up with China. China and Russia are going to become a standard, whereas right now the dollar is the standard for the world. They're going to become a competing standard. So it's not that we're going to go away, but there's going to be two standards that are going to be competing now in the world. And the war in Ukraine and our cancel culture has brought this on. So this all brings us to the Great Reset, doesn't it? This is going to happen. I'm not sure the when and exactly what it's going to look like. I don't think they're going to get what they want 100%, and I don't think they're going to get it as fast as they want it. As I have told you, and you listen to the prophecy buffs and people who I have a lot of respect for, but they're a lot like, I spend more time watching YouTube videos on how to fix things and do that sort of thing than I do watching TV. And it's been immense wonder for my mental health. But one of the things about the prepper community, you know what I mean by the prepper community? So these are the guys that are prepping for World War III and all that. Well, you've got two different classes of those. You've got those that their headline on their YouTube channel for every video they make is, "Prepare now, buy this, it's coming tomorrow." And that kind, and so they get hits based on being able to write the headline. And of course, they're overstating it drastically. So you've got the other set of preppers who are more even tone, saying things could change, you need to get ready for it, you need to be practical about the way you go about it. So we've got prophecy buffs who I agree with their theology 100%. They're exactly right. But this great reset is not coming tomorrow. I've told you, in my mind, I could see 10, maybe 20 years out this transition taking place. That's different from what they will tell you. And that's because, the sky is falling. Tomorrow it's all going to happen. So it is all moving in that direction, but not as fast as some of them would tell you it is. And I think this plays into our thinking is shaped by other people, right? The news narrative, education, so forth. When I was going to school at Warrensburg, 1973, that was when they were saying that the world's going to be overpopulated. There's going to be mass starvations in the next 10 years. Okay, they were wrong. There may be mass starvations in one of these days, but they were wrong about it. Now, so I've talked about the food shortages that are coming, and I did that because the government's talking about it. I mean, it's a real thing. It's not out there crazy. There's going to be food shortages, but what that's going to look like in America is not the same as it's going to look like in Malaysia or India, right? We have no idea the wealth that we have in this country. So when we go to the store, I like to buy and grind my own coffee beans because it tastes so much better. But the shortages in coffee is one of the things that we're already seeing shortages of. I may not be able to do that. I may have to wind up drinking Folgers. Now that's going to be almost like hell on earth. But so you see what I'm talking about. We're going to have shortages. It's not that we won't be able to get food. It may be that you can't buy the Del Monte canned food that you want. You'll have to take what's on the shelf and get it when you can get it. Because there may be a week or two when it's not there. Do you understand what I'm saying about that? So there's shortages that are coming. And it's going to be bad there's going to be starvation in the world, not in America. There's going to be bad starvation in places in Africa and so forth. There's already shortages. Some of the countries are already in a real bad way. And disrupting things, think about China is not going to go to war with the United States today because they need us desperately. We buy their stuff. Literally, if we shut it off tomorrow, if we stopped buying tomorrow, China would be done. They would go bankrupt. That works the other way around too. If China shut things off, we'd be in a real bad way. You can gripe about, made in China. Made in China. Everybody gripes about that, made in China. You better be glad you can get that because they're not making it in America. So we're a global society, for better, for worse, like it or not, and I don't like it. We are a global society. And so these things are going to affect us, and our thinking is going to be shaped by somebody else. The news, education, our own biases. The human being has something called normalcy bias. Normalcy bias is today is the same as it was yesterday, and the same as it was a week ago, and the same as it was a year ago for me. So tomorrow is going to be the same for me as it is today, right? But something could disrupt that's unforeseen. And so the normalcy bias is what will cause you not to get ready for a change that could come tomorrow. Sharon, you had your hand up. Been hearing about it for a couple of weeks. It's a large enough number that you're almost to the place where you have to say, that can't be coincidental. It can't be just coincidence that's all happening. It's been happening over, I think, a couple of years now. I haven't heard anything about it in the news. I mean, the mainstream news. They're not talking about it. But it is a real thing. Whether it's terrorism, I don't know. I'm at that place where I can't hardly believe that some of this is not intentional on purpose. But maybe not all of it. So I have a normalcy bias. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to go to the grocery store tomorrow and buy food. But something could disrupt that. Right? So Russia has done what they have done, and that has drastically affected the economics of the world. And I posted on Facebook, it dawned on me just yesterday. And it makes me really angry when I think about it. If we had kept our energy independence, if we hadn't done anything but just continue where we were with Trump, if we hadn't done anything, we would have the gas to be able to say to Germany, cut off Russia right now, we'll give you all the gas you need. Ukraine war, to a large extent, happened because of Biden being president. And that gets me kicked off YouTube. Fine, I'll go to Rumble. Seriously, it would not have happened on several different levels because of what America has been nudging Ukraine in the direction, so we oversaw a coup, I think it's 2014, to install a Western happy president. And we have been nudging them in the direction of joining NATO. They're right on the border with Russia. We have been poking the bear in the eye. What we have done, the energy and all of that we caused this to happen. Now, I know that's un-American, but that's my analytical opinion. And that's based on also some people who are in the intel community who are watching these things. That's what they say as well. But you don't hear that. In fact, all the news agencies are saying the same thing. We need to go to war against Russia and fix Ukraine. I've never seen anything in my lifetime where everybody was all together, we need to go to war. Now, I have to say, Biden has been holding back on that, not wanting to poke the bear too hard. But he announced several days ago that we were going to take all the oligarchs' money, seize it, and give it to Ukraine. Now, I don't know how you saw that. I know how Putin sees that. We're at war with the United States. That was a tactical nuclear weapon that we dropped financially. Now, I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying things happen for reasons. And our thinking is being shaped by a lot of outside influences that I don't think they know what they're talking about. So, why are we here for our Bible study tonight? In Luke 21:25, Jesus giving a private briefing to his disciples, he said, "There shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars." Okay, so that's almost a mantra kind of a thing. We think about that in the end time, and this is well into the tribulation. But I want you to notice the highlighted part there. Upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity. In other words, nobody knows what to do. I came up from exercising yesterday morning, and the news was breaking about the Supreme Court. And Judy was sitting on the couch, and I was watching Fox News downstairs, and she was watching Fox News upstairs, and we both knew what was coming out. And Judy's statement was, "What next?" Does that kind of describe where we are? Just when we think, okay, COVID-19, okay, we'll get past that, that'll be the end of it, right? No, right in the middle of COVID-19, we had Black Lives Matters do all that they did. So it's been just one thing right after another. And we're at that point where we're getting kind of punchy. What next? The sea and the waves roaring. Okay, so now in the book of Revelation, we know it's interpreted for us that the sea is peoples, the peoples of the nations of the world. So I'm going to insert here that this is what Jesus taught. Jesus doesn't care whether the ocean's foaming. I mean, the physical ocean. That doesn't make any difference. And it doesn't have any connection to prophecy. But the perplexity of nations is connected to the nations being like the sea and the waves roaring. If you ever go to the ocean, you know, one of the things about the ocean is it just never stops. Right? The waves just keep coming, and the foaming. And I went to the Bahamas a few years ago, and one of the things that I noticed outside my window every morning, early, before all the tourists would come, the hotel would have people out there raking all the stuff that had been puked up by the ocean onto the shore. Okay, so that's the foaming that the Bible speaks of prophetically about. And so this is into the tribulation. These things aren't going to happen overnight. We're leading up to that. Jesus tried to visualize this by saying it's like a woman who's going into labor. You know, the labor begins and it increases in the number of pains and the intensity. And that's where we are. We're at the beginning of these painful things that are coming upon us. 1 Corinthians 2:9, though, wash your mind out with this, as Paul Harvey would say. Paul said, "But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither hath entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him." Now, I can imagine some pretty good stuff. I can visualize some pretty wonderful things that I think that are going to be there in heaven. Paul says, I don't know the half of it. You know, and he said the good that's there is not even on the same magnitude level as the stuff that we suffer through down here. So it's completely different. It's the difference between the moon and the sun in size. So what we're going through down here is nothing compared to what we're going to go through and enjoy in heaven. And that's why we began to look at Revelation 22, 21, and 22. So let's look there for a few moments. Revelation 21 and 21, we'll just pick it. We've looked at these verses before, but they're just so wonderful. Verse 1, John saw, now remember, this is all the way past the 7 years of tribulation, all the way past the 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth, the end of it all. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. You know, I wonder about things sometimes that I probably shouldn't even think about. So, if there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, at this time, at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ, we're on the earth. Where's he going to put us while he does this? Right? That's not even worth thinking about, is it? I wonder about these things. Verse 2, and I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain. For the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, and I think these are important words here at the end of verse 5, write, for these things are true and faithful. Do you believe the Bible? We're told here that these things are true and we can count on them. We can count on them. When we're going through COVID-19 and Black Lives Matters and Antifa, and when we're going through all the stuff we've been, it really is just like waves that have come upon us for the last 2.5 years, or 3 years almost now. We need to know that we can trust his word. It is faithful. So, why do we think this is a big deal right now? Why have we been doing this study on end times? Well, Harbinger's Daily has an article, and there are 12 prophetic signs written. Jonathan Brentner put these down. And I thought we'd go there and look at these 12 real quick, just run through, because they're the things that we've been talking about. But these show, yes, we are coming to the end of these things. So let's go to that web page. And I would recommend Harbinger's Daily to you. It's a great site. These 12 signs. So the first one, and again, except for one of these, we've talked about all of these before. They are big deals. They are evidence that we are living at the end of prophetic times. The rebirth of Israel, 1948. Jesus said, you know, summer is here when the olive tree, and the olive tree puts its branches out. And secondly, the third temple preparations. We haven't talked very much about this one, but it is a big deal. So in 70 AD, they no longer at Jerusalem had a temple. Haven't for 2,000 years now. And they've already trained priests. They have all the priestly utensils and garbs. All they need is permission on the site to build the temple. They already have the money backing to build the temple. Everything's really, and that's happened in the last 20 years. You know, we've talked a little bit about the ashes of the red heifer. In order to begin sacrifices and temple activities, they have to have priests who are ceremonially cleansed. In order to do that, they have to have holy water, literally, water that is mixed with the ashes of a red heifer that has been sacrificed. But that red heifer, so it has to be a red heifer without any deformity. But I think the Jews are taking it far beyond what God intended. Any red heifer that's in pretty good shape would have done. But the Jews, I think if there's 3 hairs that are not red on that calf, they nix it and they can't use it. And I don't know that they've found a red heifer that's that perfect yet. But they maybe have, I don't know. So everything's coming together. And it may be another 10 years before they get to do it. I'm just saying, for the last 2,000 years, it hasn't even been a possibility. We're at the place now where it's a real possibility. Well, there's been some debate about the site of the temple. Right. And I'm not enough of an expert, but I know archaeologically there's debate going on. Maybe the Temple Mount's not the spot. Right. I think it is. And you can see why the devil has shaped everything up, where if they tried to do it, it'd be World War III. Right? Maybe so crazy. Just recently, during Ramadan, the Muslims on the Temple Mount, the Palestinians, started throwing rocks and doing all the rioting. And so our government's response was, well, both sides need to not do anything bad. The Jews weren't doing anything bad. They were the ones that were getting the rocks thrown at them. And by the way, things are changing on the world scene. So under Trump, the Muslim world was being brought into a peaceful place with Israel. Even to the extent where there's some of us who were thinking, is Trump the Antichrist who's going to make a peace deal? But under Biden, that's all gone backwards. Now Putin is threatening Israel. Putin just spoke with Abbas, the Palestinian Authority leader, and he's buddying up with them now. So there's the Ezekiel 37-38 war that we can begin to see some shadows of it show up, but we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. So the fact that they have all this in place and are ready to go, what could change? I can't foresee what would change that would let the Palestinians allow the Jews to have that. Except maybe nuclear war where they destroy Iran and they go ahead at the same time and take out the Palestinians and they cease being an authority. Something like that. I'm just theorizing. That's the only thing I can conceive that might happen that would give them the real estate to do it. It's going to be something that cataclysmic, or there's going to be a peace deal. The Antichrist is going to make a peace deal. And it's amazing. Daniel said it's going to last 7 years. Isn't that amazing? That just happens to be how long the tribulation is. And right in the middle of it, Jesus said he's going to break that deal. So he's going to give them permission. So maybe it's going to be an Antichrist. The church is going to be taken out, and the Antichrist is going to have such power and authority and sway, and he's going to be so savvy that he's going to be able to broker a deal. So he'll give the Palestinians all this in exchange for the Temple Mount being able to be where they'll build the temple. So, something like that could happen. Okay, let's move along. Third, we've talked about the vaccine mandates. That may get me kicked off of YouTube as well. Fine, I'll go to Rumble. So the vaccine mandates. If you can't see how this is a piece in the puzzle preparing us for the mark of the beast, it's not the mark of the beast. But it is pushing us in that direction of accepting that kind of thing. Number 4, the world's response, the way I've taught it to you, he says here the worldwide obsession, the world's response coming together to deal with the coronavirus is unprecedented in the history of the world. In my lifetime, but as far as I know, in the history of the world has never come together like that. Like we've never seen the world come together on canceling Putin. That's a brand new thing. Well, so this worldwide response to the coronavirus is indications that we're getting ready for the system the Antichrist is going to put in place. Number 5, The Great Reset, that fits into it the same way. Build back better. The sad thing is, on the one end of that, the other part of that they don't talk much about, first you have to burn it down, and then you get to build it back better. That's the reason why the normalcy bias that I have, that tomorrow that money I have in the bank is still going to be there where I can go down to the bank and get it. That normalcy bias is going to cause me problems, because if they get their way, if they do what they want to do, something is going to happen that's going to shut all that off. This is the reason why I've told you, you need to have your money in more than one bank, and you need to have some stuffed under your mattress. I know. I'm crazy. I've been tested. It's true. Number 6, we just mentioned this. It wasn't worth the whole study. Prince Charles made his speech in Glasgow back last year in November. And I think he made his statement as a faux pas. I don't know that he meant to say the way he did. Anyway, here's his statement. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector with trillions at his disposal. And this is what people have made so much of. Who is he? Now, I think he was just thinking in terms of somebody, but maybe he knows something I don't know. Maybe the Antichrist is in the wings. Anyway, there is that. The response to global climate change is not going to go away. The reason why, well, we've talked about this. We need to move on. Inflation, this feeds into the catastrophe that needs to come to destroy the financial system. The financial system of the world, was it affected by COVID-19? I can't believe we've survived as well as we have. Is it being affected by Ukraine? Like I've already said, Russia and China, they're now going to become a global currency in competition with the dollar. These things are happening. As we think about, we look at the border and we say, somebody should do something about that. When we look to Washington, if you could hear the discussion behind the scenes, you would hear Biden say, I am doing something about it. This is exactly what I'm doing. This is what he wants. This is what they want. There's two Americas. And so inflation, when he says, I feel your pain, he's an elitist. He's an elitist. In fact, the people in his orbit were saying, that made its way to the news, let them eat cake. Basically is what they said. They said, that's just a minor inconvenience for you. You just have to do without. That's how much they care. Deception, this is where it all started. Our study began with Jesus' challenge in Matthew 24, don't be deceived. Now, if Jesus challenged more than once in that private briefing, don't be deceived, that doesn't mean deceived by the world. We're already looking at them. We know what they are. That means within the church, we need to be careful not to be deceived. What I'm trying to say is the apostasy in the church is under full sway. Southern Baptist Convention, one of the last ones to fall, but we're woke too. The executive board just spent $1.5 million to pay lawyers for a study about how the previous executive board didn't handle a sexual abuse case right. And there's lots of other things I could tell you. The church in America is woke, and that's not a good thing. The apostasy is full underway. And so we need to be careful not to be deceived. If I were sitting here talking with some of my friends in the convention, they would tell me that I'm overstating it and I shouldn't be concerned about it. And these are necessary everyday operating expenses and blah, blah, blah. And they don't even know that they've been deceived. And then we've talked about the lawless one in 2 Thessalonians 2. 2 Thessalonians 2 is the Antichrist. And one of his titles is that he is the lawless one. Do you know what this attack on the Supreme Court was? It was a tactical nuclear explosion against law. The Democrats and the left, starting with Biden, are already beating the drums. The Supreme Court can't be trusted. We've either got to pack the court. In order to do that, they're going to have to do away with the filibuster. If they can do away with the filibuster, they can pack the court with 20 judges, all of them Democrats, and then they can get whatever they want. Lawlessness. Democrats in America are the epitome of the lawless ones. The abortion issue is just a perfect example. So in 73, when it was ruled that abortion could take place, did the church begin to burn down government buildings? No. I would argue that might have been a good thing, but we didn't. That's not how Christians do things. But do you know what the last couple of days Antifa and the anarchists in America are saying? I hesitate to even tell you this. They're starting to say, we need to burn the churches down. That's where the conservatives who gave us this court meet. Now, all things concerning the fire, burn it down. I want to buy new stuff anyway. I'm not married to this. If you're married to this, you got bigger problems. If you care about, I don't want to lose it. But my point is, the lawlessness is growing in America. Antifa and the anarchists are right there with the Democrats. They're calling for violence. Now, I thought the violence that almost happened in the Capitol on January 6th, the infamous day, I thought violence was never the answer. And yet that's what they're calling for. It's okay when they do it. Okay, number 10, the rise of the one world religion. We've talked about that, but that's a sign that we're at the end of this age. And the mocking. Here's one that I really hadn't spent much time on, but this guy brought it out. And right there in 2 Peter 3, that's what Peter said. He said in the last days, there's going to be these scoffers. There are going to be people who are mocking. Do you know that among my peers, most of my peers as a pastor think I'm very wrong-headed that I ever talk about prophecy. They never do. And they think I'm wrong for doing it. And they're just saying basically what Peter said, where's the promise of his coming? So we'll close with this. I'll give you number 12. The Gog and Magog war is shaping up. It's not here yet, but it is shaping up. The picture of where we are today happened in history. When Moses went up to the mountain to receive the law, right? The people of God, not the lost pagan heathen out there, but the people of God said to Aaron, Aaron, he's been gone a long time. An animal has eaten him or he's died somehow. He's not coming back. We want you to build us a golden calf because we want to worship. That's where we are in America, Christianity today. The apostasy. We want a golden calf. We could go much more into detail about that and may in the days to come. But here we are at the end of this age. Are you ready? And I know that you sitting here are ready. If you've accepted Christ as Savior, you're ready. In fact, there's days when we're anxious for all this to get underway, right? There may be somebody listening to my voice, watching on YouTube or Rumble, that they're not ready. You need to get ready. As you see these things shaping up, if you all at once see the church taken out, you need to prepare yourself. We told you. We warned you. And it's going to get hard. The easy way is to accept Jesus now.